what reminded me of Ant and young Kobe, and just space, and I think it's more of the teams than the actual two players. Like when Kobe was winning his first two titles, first three titles, he could be the person that, if he's not scoring, could just lock somebody down and doesn't have to necessarily he doesn't have to manage the game. He has the Derek Fisher to be able to do that. You saw that with Mike Conley. Or he has the Glenn Rice over here, right? Or he has the Robert Horry over here. And then he can focus on his defense or getting his shots when he needed to, right? Or he also had Shaq, which was, the most dominant force at the time. But more of the comparison is that he had veterans around him that could supplement the game managing role that he needs to do. And I think when we were talking about, me and Rob were talking about Luka versus Ant right now, and I think Rob asked me who I thought was better in this moment. I said I think that Luka is better in this moment because he can manage the game in that way, right? He's a one-man game manager while being the superstar. But I saw with Anthony Edwards, what I want to ask you, Raj, is how important, at least in the role that Anthony Edwards occupies at this moment. Now, I hope that he does get to that role of in his 8th or 9th year to where you can run offense through him and trust him to be able to do some of the things he could. Mike Conley's not going to be there in his year 8. But right now, how important is it right now for Anthony Edwards and his trajectory to have those veteran presence around him and have those other guys that can do things when his shot isn't necessarily falling? And, maybe he's taking because he was taking some wild shots yesterday. Yeah. How important is it to have those other guys that can manage the game on his behalf until he gets going?
It's huge on any team. I would just like to take it back. I think I would make the argument that while, yes, it's important for both a young Kobe and a young Ant to have those veterans and calming influences and guys who have been in these situations before. Like we speak about that with any good team. Like there's got to be a good blend and mix of stardom, fresh legs, veteran leadership and experience. Like all of that goes into the pot when you're trying to win a championship. I would argue that Ant is more of a connector than Kobe was.
Sure.
Kobe was kind of insular. Like when he was younger like that, like trying to break through. I think Ant, you see him connecting, like he's leading more than a young Kobe probably did with a Shaq. I don't think it was necessarily like a Kobe issue, but you did have Shaq and some of those guys there that were the faces and the leaders. And in terms of the importance to Ant, it's huge, but it's huge for any of them. And in terms of game management itself, like Luka plays a way that's going to lend itself to managing games. He got the fucking ball all the time.
Yeah.
Like it's just he's got the ball. You better manage the fucking game. You dribble. You got it all the time. Like Ant's game isn't always like that. Now he could get, as he continues to evolve, he becomes the guy who has it all the time. But I don't know that I want him as the guy that has it all the time. They get him into pick and roll. He creates. He does his things. He'll continue to grow. I think Luka does have a better understanding of how all the chess pieces move when he does X, Y, and Z. But it's because he does X, Y, and Z, and he's got like a catalog of years worth of experience with that. Like Ant's still going to grow.
14.
Yeah, Ant's still going to grow into that. So, but it's huge for him to have guys like that. Like, but everyone needs a supporting cast, right, Logan? Like we can't just throw it on the back of one of these young stars, Luka included. Yeah. Like it's taken the right ensemble cast around him, to kind of let those brilliances in his game kind of continue to propel them to the next level of the playoff run.
Sure. Howard, I want to talk Nuggets really quickly. We talked in our last podcast just about what would happen and what would be, how would the Nuggets move forward if they lose Game 7? Now we're on the other side of that, and we can actually have a conversation of what they have to do or what they can do and how they'll be looked at. How big of a loss was it for this group in this season when they had by and large the same team. They didn't have Bruce Brown, but they had the other Brown brother, and where do they go from? That was wild. Where do they go from? Where do they go from here in the immediate aftermath of this series?
This is why it should be pronounced Braun, Braun. then this wouldn't happen.
Apologies.
It's interesting. Like if you watched Michael Malone's press conference, because you saw like the full spectrum of emotions and various entry points as to what had just happened and what it all means for him as the coach of this team. And one of the interesting things that Malone made a point of saying was, listen, the Spurs were a dynasty and the Spurs never won back-to-back, meaning we still have a lot of lifespan left. And I agree with him. I mean, the fact is nobody has defended their championship since the Warriors in 2017 and 18. Like it's been 6 years since we've had back-to-back. In fact, more than that, just some context for the Nuggets, quote unquote, failing to get back to the championship. No defending champion has even made it back to the finals the next season since the Warriors in 2019, after winning the 2 championships and then trying to three-peat, getting hurt and losing to Toronto. So everybody, like, they're winning and then they're flaming out. The Lakers in 2020 couldn't get anywhere near the finals the next season. The Bucks win in 2021, couldn't get anywhere near. The Warriors win in 22, couldn't get anywhere near. And now the Nuggets, like, this is just where we are. It's the 6th straight year, I believe, that a defending champion hasn't even gotten past the second round. And it's just, this is where we are. If we're going to talk about parity and how wonderful and amazing and interesting it is, then when a team like the Nuggets falters, we have to remember that, yes, things are just this close now. To your point, Logan, all right, they had their starting 5 intact, but depth matters. And having a serviceable 6th and 7th man who are reliable and can produce does matter. They lost Bruce Brown and
5
Jeff
points
Green
from their bench last night.
Yeah. Not only that, but like, look at like the Timberwolves. So Slow-Mo only played 4 minutes, but Naz Reid 22 minutes, Nickeil Alexander-Walker 17 minutes. The Nuggets bench at Game 7 when they, when they're all gassed, and they said it afterward, they were gassed. Christian Brown with an AUN played 20 minutes, but like Justin Holiday 9 and Reggie Jackson 5, like they just didn't even try to use the bench because obviously Michael Malone didn't trust that he had anybody on that bench who could do anything for them. To which I want to just point out this one other thing, which was that toward the end of his press conference, when he was asked about just the exhaustion of trying to defend a championship, Michael Malone says, we played into June last year. And then he says, we had to play our main guys, unlike last season, through game 82 just to secure the number 2 seed. The amount of minutes our starters had to play, I think guys are gassed. They're dead tired. I don't want to go too far with this, and I'm not trying to start shit, but like, that's a little bit of a low-key shot, I think, at the front office where they did not have the bench support. And it's hard, and I'm not blaming the front office necessarily. I'm just pointing out, like, if you say that we had to play our starters that much through game 82 and now they're gassed, you're basically saying you did not have a bench you could trust or that was good enough. And look, like the fact is, like, nobody on that bench was as good as the 2 guys they lost last season. So it's all part of this, and that's part of what they have to address in the offseason. But I just want to underscore, since I made this point at the beginning of the season, this is why you don't declare a team a potential dynasty after only 1 championship.
No doubt. I would just add, I mean, not only did you only have 5 in the limited minutes from the bench, but you only had 16 outside of Jokic and Jamal Murray from the 3 other starters. Like that, you're not going to win games very often like that. You had 21 points outside of Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. Like, that's not going to get it done.
Well, I mean, Aaron Gordon, 4 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists in 42 minutes.
What was the phrase I kept using, guys? Margin for error. They have a smaller margin for error than your typical champion because if Jokic and Murray aren't at their best, and especially Jokic, there's just not a lot there. Yes, Aaron Gordon can have a great game here and there, and it is a really good player and an important player. Michael Porter Jr., same thing. KCP, same thing. But nobody else who can really carry you. This is Jokic and an ensemble, and the margin for error is slim.
So this is interesting, right? And it won't matter again the rest of the season. But like when I'm not on this pod, it's been asked on this pod before. But when people would ask me to come on their local radio show and stuff, and they ask me about the Nuggets, how do you defend them? That's the blueprint that I would always go with. Now, the Nuggets make it almost impossible on a nightly basis to do that to him or to do that to them. But I would pencil in Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray for 30 apiece. And if I could stymie the rest of that roster, that's what I'm doing. Do you know? And it's easier said than done. I know but if they don't get to the support, just for that very reason, if they're not going to get the support, I mean, even if Nikola has 50 and Jamal has 35, it's not beating you if the rest of them are getting 4 points a pop.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what they do with their depth. It's always the margin of error between two, if you win or lose, right? Like, what's Aaron Gordon's future? How are they going to pay for this team that does not have a bench that gives you 5 points in a game 7 going forward? It's going to be interesting. Let's look ahead really quickly. I think this is going to be. We knew Nuggets Timberwolves was going to be entertaining. I think Mavericks Timberwolves is also going to be entertaining. I know you guys don't like predictions, but hey, Howard, we got to do one today. Just listen. This is just how it goes. We're predicting series. I'll start with Howard. How do you see this series going? Like, what excites you about it, and then ultimately, what's going to happen?
Timberwolves have hung their hat on defense, as Raja was talking about earlier, and one of the things that's great about Anthony Edwards as a young star in this league, who most people will focus on because of his scoring, but also just the way he scores and how exciting he is and how much fun it is to watch him score and his creativity and his explosiveness and all that. There's this hallway interview yesterday where he talks about locking up. He says, I had Jamal in handcuffs, Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray had 11 points on 12 shots in the second half. I love that Anthony Edwards takes pride in that. And I think it was in the post game on the court interview with TNT where he was talking about, I'm going to have Kyrie in the next series. He's already talking about what his assignment is. That's cool. I love that. So the first thing I'm thinking about is Anthony Edwards trying to take Kyrie, one of the greatest, most creative and skilled scorers we've seen, trying to take him out.
The biggest test of his young career, probably, if not the biggest test, as a one-on-one assignment.
And they're going to want him to still score 25, 30 at the other end. So that's a lot. But I love that the first thing he's talking about is I got to go check Kyrie now. And then what do you do with Luka if you're the Wolves? Now they've got a lot of ways to attack this. I assume McDaniels is going to spend a lot of time on him. Nickeil Alexander-Walker. There's no stopping Luka Doncic, and even if you're slowing him up as a scorer, he's going to get his guys involved. That's what he does. He's going to have the ball in his hands 99% of the time, and the Mavericks are really dangerous. But the Mavericks have gotten a lot of mileage out of that new front line, and I don't know that front line is built to deal with Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert. Curious to see what Raja thinks of it, but I think the Wolves have the advantage on there's the obvious. They've got home court advantage in the series. As far as the Mavericks defense has come in recent months, the Timberwolves have the better, more consistent defense. They've got size. I'll leave whatever dumb predictions we have to make until later.
But hey, that was a lot of talk to dodge.
I'm not dodging. I'm just saying
a lot of words.
Logan's going to ask us at some point to say, okay, what do you think? Who's winning? How many games?
That was me. How do you see this series playing out?
What is your prediction? Fine. Wolves in 7.
Thank you. Jesus. That's the only time it's going to happen until the finals. Howard, relax. I learned my lesson. All right? Jeez.
Predictions.
What do you say?
I was going to ask you Raja, what did you think of because the Dallas's defense has been its calling card for the last part of the season. It's since February, since they made that trade to get Gafford. I don't know the numbers, but I know that they've been really good since they made that trade. And Lively, while being a rookie, has played really, really well as a big throughout the postseason.
Yeah,
but you don't see that defense standing a chance against this Timberwolves team.
I wouldn't necessarily say that. I don't know that I wouldn't phrase it as I don't see that defense standing a chance against Minnesota. I think that the Mavs defense will show up to play. I just think Milwaukee's a better defensive team.
Minnesota.
Sorry, Minnesota. Yeah, I think Minnesota's a better defensive team. They've done it for longer. They've hung their hat on that for a couple years now. And I think what's hard to quantify for the average fan watching on TV, you guys get to go to those games and you get really close to the action so you can see just how big those dudes are.
Yeah.
Minnesota is big. They are
Rico Bear is
long.
a huge human being, bro.
They're long.
Just tall, big motherfucker.
Yeah,
man.
and so they pose problems defensively that quite frankly not everybody poses to a really good offensive team. Now, on the flip side, I was coming into these playoffs liking Dallas a little bit because if you remember, I'm like, look, in the playoffs, it sometimes it comes down to, do you have a dude that's better than the other guy's dude that can get the buckets?
And
when we're facing, they have two. So I like it. I like the series. I think it'll be really entertaining. I too am going to pick Minnesota to win it. I just think that because of the way they defend, it makes it that much harder for the Kyrie and the Luka to have those games over and over and over again consistently enough for them to beat them. So I like 7. I wouldn't be mad if you told me 6. I think Milwaukee, Minnesota wears on them eventually and finds a way to win it.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting series. It took everything, and I know that we just saw how much it took for the Timberwolves to win 7 games, but it took a lot for the Dallas Mavericks to get out of the OKC series. I was really, really impressed with OKC. I really think that they have a really bright future. I love Shea, just how calm, cool, and collected he is at all times. Did you see the shots that he hit in Game 7, man?
Yeah,
just ridiculous. Man. Okay, I'm gonna take the Timberwolves in 7. I don't have the heart to say that the Dallas Mavericks are gonna win, even though I love them a lot.